successful in Clash Royale. So I'm just gonna give tips that kind of helped me. I'm still in mid-ladder, but I'm in like the 6,000 trophy range, so these are just stuff that helped me move up. So first is probably one of the most important is the deck that you use. You want to make sure you're using a good deck. So I recommend sticking to meta decks, which is basically the popular decks that are just the most efficient strategy decks that are like trending currently, I would say. So here in this picture, there's just a few examples of meta decks that are very good. And yeah, I currently use the Piggy AQ cycle, which is okay, but it just really depends on what works best, like what you find works best with your playing style. So if you like more heavy decks, then I recommend the Golem beatdown or any beatdown. But if you're more fast paced, then log beat. But I love how many decks, if you're a beginner, I just recommend using something meta because they're just more viable. You could always go on like Royal API or any stats royale, whatever, to see what the most used decks are and the win rates. The higher the win rate is of a specific deck and you use that deck, then you're just a reminder, the meta does shift from every balance update, so it's just really depending on the balance changes. So always have your cards upgraded because you never know when your deck might be nerfed, because that does happen a lot. So okay, this is also important, elixir efficiency. So there's 3 main things. Your deck cost, so you don't want an overly expensive deck because you're going to find yourself in a difficult situations where you're having trouble defending because you just don't have the elixir to defend. And then there's the opposite problem. You can't have a deck that's too cheap, because if your deck is too cheap, like I'm talking under 2 elixir, that means you have too many 1 or 2 elixir cards in your deck and you're not going to have enough damage units or tank units to either push on offense or defend. So I recommend having a deck in between like 2.3 elixir to like 4.4 elixir. The next thing is you cannot leak elixir. It's basically when you're at 10 elixir and you're just not placing cards and you're just sitting there letting your elixir waste. This just gives you advantage and an elixir at a disadvantage because you have a bunch of potential elixir that you could be using, but instead you're just laying back and letting it accumulate when you could be placing cards in your arena. Whether you're just cycling a log and logging nothing, at least you're getting tower damage. Just don't sit there at 10 elixir. Even if your opponent's not playing any cards, if you just cycle on the back or just cycle a spell on the tower, anything gets value. And then elixir trades. This is very positive important. Elixir trades, which is basically when you're spending less elixir than your opponent. This just again puts you at an elixir advantage, which will benefit you in the game. If you're spending way more elixir than needed, then that can cost you the game. So for example, if your opponent plays a princess and you rocket the princess, and I'm talking at the bridge, then that's a negative 3 elixir trade because they wasted 3 elixir and then you wasted 6 elixir. So you want to spend less than what they spend. For example, they play a princess and you play a log. Now that's a positive 1 elixir trade because you spent less elixir than your opponent. So as long as you do that, you will have an advantage. Tilting's basically when you're on a losing streak and you're just like frustrated with the game and you're angry, and it just causes you to just play aggressive. And you know, when you're tilting, you're not in like a clear state of mind, so you're not playing at your full potential, which could cause you to lose, you know, from being over aggressive. So I suggest if you lost like 2 or 3 games, just take a break, play later, play tomorrow, because it's not worth it to keep going because you're just likely gonna lose. Like sometimes it's just not your moment to play. You're getting bad matchups and it happens. Trust me, I've been there and it's pretty bad. So I've just started recently playing like 1 or 2 games of ladder a day, and that just keeps me from tilting. So a game a day keeps the tilting away. Okay, reading your opponent. This one is kind of more technical, and if you're a beginner, it will take some time. So you have to know 2 things about your opponent: how much elixir they are at, and what cards they have in their cycle. So if your opponent just spent like 6 elixir or 7 or 8 elixir, you know they're at low elixir, so you have to take advantage of that and, you know, make a push or something. Or what I like to do is, like, if I see my opponent
I'll go in
rockets
with E-barbs at the bridge,
tower,
and they might not have enough to defend it because they just spent a lot of elixir. Next is knowing what card your opponent has in cycle.
if you know what cards they have, then you could kind of manipulate that and use cards to your advantage. For example, if your opponent just played arrows, then you could go in with minion horde and they might not have a counter to that. So 5 is card placement. This is another technical one that you don't need to know exactly.
If you want to get better at the game, you might want to know
how the tiles work and how far you need to place a card in order for it to target this, or just optimal building pit placements. So if they play Hog Rider, you want to put your building far enough so the Hog Rider gets distracted and stays away from your tower, but close enough so then it actually pulls the Hog Rider. Sometimes people play the building too far, the Hog Rider doesn't target it, or if it's too close, you're just gonna get more damage done to your tower if it's too close, or if they have a spell. So just knowing ultimate placements could actually help you. This works with anything like spells, or like, I don't know, a fisherman, like how far should you put it, king tower activations, all that kind of stuff. Lastly, I would say watch pros play because they're very good, and at the end of the day I can't really say much because I'm still in mid ladder. So if you really want to see, you know, how to push up on ladder, then your best bet is just watching actual high ladder pro players. So what I do, I watch pros all the time, whether it's on TikTok, or I usually just go on YouTube and I watch the CRL like tournaments, and it actually helps you become better when you're watching these pros because they're very skillful and you learn a lot, really. And I think that's it. So other than that, I would say keep practicing, pick a deck, stick with it, and practice, upgrade your cards, make sure they're maxed out, and yeah, that's really it. So I hope that you guys liked this video, and please follow my TikTok. and get me to 1,000 followers. Bye.